Starlink's high performance fixed mount RV specific dish is here, and it's big. Let's get this unboxed and come along with us and I'll tell you all about it. All right, so I think I got everything here, and I'm glad I got a big table because we need it right now. Okay, so going over the stuff that you see here, you've got your Starlink high performance fixed mount dish here. You've got your wedge mount here for fixed mounting that to the roof of the vehicle. You've got a power adapter here. This essentially provides power to the dish itself. Then you've got the Starlink router, which is this box here. You've got a optional cable here, which will allow the Starlink device to plug into a standard Ethernet jack if you're looking to combine this with a Peplink solution, which I highly recommend because any single internet solution that can go down, Starlink can be brought down by parking under a tree, is going to be troublesome for folks that want reliable internet. So definitely look at kind of balancing this out with another solution. We'll talk about that later. For right now, we're just going to focus on what this kit does. Additionally, we've got a set of screws here. They've provided us with some blue Loctite to secure some of those screws, and some branded silicone here, which is for sealing your roof ports. I don't recommend using silicone on an RV roof, but that's what they've included. Some mollies for this is really for like masonry mollies or other stuff. I'm not sure I would use that in an RV roof either, but they've included it. And then they have this, which is a cable entry gland, which we'll talk about in a bit as well, that they want you to use to bring the cable down into the RV. Lastly, we've got some paperwork here. One is specific to the wedge mount kit and how you would mount that. This one is specific to the mounts for these devices, and then you've got a regulatory statement, and then lastly you've got a small piece of paper that I don't have right here that includes a KT number, which is like your kit number, which you would use to activate service on the device. That all comes in the kit from mobilemusthave.com, and we do ship these same day, just like everything else. These are in stock in our warehouse, and we will ship them to you immediately. Almost forgot, one last thing they do include in the kit is this little template, which is roughly the exact size of the dish. I found that this was actually kind of handy because it had the 4 pre-drilled holes in it when I was up on the roof, and I was just trying to situate and figure out where this would fit best before I brought the big dish up on the roof. So this is kind of a nice little touch that they've included as well. So for those of you that are new to Starlink, what's the point of all this? All right, well, Starlink is essentially a low orbit satellite internet solution. There's tons of news and information about it, but effectively you can get high-speed internet via the Starlink solution. And Starlink has offered national and also global plans for folks that are traveling around the country, like RVers. Now, historically, when Starlink came out, the dishes were really designed for rural home use, and they had motors in them, and they typically were designed to be mounted on top of roofs or on large poles to optimally operate. They really weren't designed for mobile use. There was also issues with the FCC and them being certified to be used in an RV environment. Fast forward to today, Starlink has released the high performance kit, fixed mount kit that you see here. And really the fundamental difference in terms of what you get versus the traditional is you get this larger dish that's going to perform more effectively. Now, just like everything else at mobilemusthave.com, unless we specifically state otherwise, we test this stuff. I've had one of these dishes installed on my RV for about 3 months now, and I've been using it, and I've been pretty happy with the results overall. But I use it in combination with a solution that also uses cellular internet, and I augment this with additional internet connections for a very stable connection. But this has really turned into one of my primary go-to solutions for internet, in addition to the cellular connections, to round out my solution for really stable, reliable internet. Because this is a high-level overview video, we'll kind of keep it brief, but just to give you an idea of how this would all fit together. This wedge mount here would actually operate this way, and the low point of the wedge mount would go towards the front of your RV. You would then look for the cable port here on the Starlink, and then put that down this way with the cable port also facing towards the front of your RV. That might seem counterintuitive because you're driving forward and water may be able to get into the front of that port. This is how Starlink has designed the solution as of today. Mine has not had any problems, and it is the way that they recommend that we mount the solution. So this is how this would get installed up on the roof. There are no moving parts, and this will also include a snow melt heater inside of the system. So if you get snow on the dish, it will actually melt that snow and continue to operate. In terms of what you do from the dish sort of down, there's one cable. One cable comes down from the dish. It's this cable right here, which is 25 feet in length. That's a nice touch because the previous cables from Starlink were 50 feet, or you could get them even longer, and they just, for most folks I know, ended up with just a bundle of cables sitting there. So because this is like a fixed mount permanent installation, 25 feet I think is a really good amount of cable that will get you connected. I'm just going to talk about the standard installation method to begin with, and then we'll talk about what it would look like if you wanted to integrate it into a Peplink or another router solution to augment the Starlink with cellular or another internet connection. So to start, you would take the dish here to this cable here. This would be routed down through the roof of your vehicle into the RV. Starlink recommends that you route the cable directly below the dish through this hole right there that's located in the center of the wedge. But me personally, if I was going to install this in my RV, I would route this into a junction box, and I would go down through a central junction box where I also had other cables going down from the roof. On my personal blog, liveandlight.net, we'll link a video that shows you how you can create one of these junction boxes to route these cables, but really that's up to you. From there, you're going to go into this box, which is the power supply box that's going to power this dish. There's then a cable that comes out of the power supply, and it goes into this Starlink router. This router provides the ability for the single internet connection coming out of the dish to provide internet to all of the devices inside of your RV or marine application. So this is essentially like a home router. It's going to provide Wi-Fi out via 2 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. This does not have Ethernet ports on the device, so that's just something to kind of be aware of that is not included in the router. It's really kind of designed to just be a Wi-Fi solution out of the gate. One thing to note, you are going to need 120 volt power for the power supply here and for the Starlink router here if you're going to use this in kind of a standalone configuration. That's how it's all going to plug in and operate. Another distinction with the RV specific kit is that these devices now all have these mounting brackets on them. So if you look here, you can pull this off, and that mounting bracket now has screw holes in it, making it a bit easier to mount inside of an RV application. Just leave that one there. I'll show you the other one. Here's the one for the actual Starlink router as well. So that way you can kind of get stuff fixed mounted into a cabinet location. In terms of performance and kind of what I think about the dish after using it for a couple months, it's one of the best performing satellite internet solutions I've ever used. I think everybody knows that. I think that Starlink has done a great job of really kind of coming up with an amazing solution with this low orbit technology. For things like Netflix, for things like streaming, for things like browsing the internet, as long as you've got a relatively decent clear line of sight to a lot of sky, and it needs a lot of sky. It's not like a traditional dish where you could kind of point it between 2 trees. It doesn't work that way. You need a lot of broad sky. It works pretty well. I would say, the real downside for me for Starlink is similar to most single internet solutions, is that there can be dropouts. Anything that's traveling through the air to provide you high-speed internet can provide dropouts. So, I oftentimes will see in a 60-second window, maybe 1 or 2 seconds, where the internet will drop out for a minute because of coverage with satellites or obstructions with trees or whatever as I'm using the solution. That's Not a big deal for Netflix. That's not a big deal for browsing the internet. You typically won't see any of that stuff because of the way the technology works. It is a big deal for folks that are working on the road, who are relying on this for work, for like voice over IP, Zoom, things like that. That's where, if this was my only internet solution, I would probably have trouble working from the road, mainly for voice and for video conferencing applications. Now that said, I've integrated this, we'll talk about this a little bit at the end, and then we'll have a separate video around our Starlink bundle solutions with a Peplink solution that provides redundancy for the Starlink with a cellular connection, so that if the Starlink goes down for a little bit, it doesn't matter, my internet connection stays completely reliable. But that's for the next video. But just so you know that this solution can be adapted or augmented to that type of, more redundant solution that has more than one connection to the internet. In terms of getting through your roof and getting into your kind of interior area for the installation, this is the included kind of cable grommet solution that they feel like you should basically, with a razor blade, cut a hole in the middle of this, screw this together, and then drill this down onto your roof and seal it with that silicone sealant. This is probably the single biggest concern I have in this kit. I wouldn't use this in my RV if I was entering a cable, just based on the fact that it's a surface mount, and you have to cut away components to get the cable in. It could absolutely be done. Just be very careful with this mounting installation. I would, check out the cable box installation that we have at liveandlight.net, where I create a surface mount wire junction box, and that would be, in my opinion, a much better way to get the cables into the RV. But it does include this kit. My recommendation would be that if you do use this, to pick up a tube of Dicor self-leveling roof sealant. You can pick that up from mobilemusthav.com and use that instead of that silicone. It's going to do a much better job of adapting as your roof expands and contracts due to variations in temperature, or if someone's walking on the roof, than silicone. Silicone is, in my opinion, really just something that you use on metal roofs and other surfaces that don't have a lot of flex like RV roofs do. But other than that, the kit does come with everything you need to get it up and running. And an alternative cable entry point solution like a box is not a high cost. And for me, I like it because it allows me to put other cables down the same hole without having to modify anything up on the roof over and over again that might create leaks. Okay, so we've talked about how this would be installed on its own using all of this equipment. Now, how would I install it if I was installing it in my situation or in my vehicle? We'll talk about that kind of next, and this will kind of be a segue into the next video, which we'll talk about our bundles. First thing I would do is I would get rid of this Starlink router completely. So I would go ahead and take this cable out, take this Starlink router, and put it somewhere where I'm not going to use it anymore. That's gone to me. Then I would take this cable that comes with the device, which is a Ethernet cable and a Starlink cable on the other end. And I would take the Starlink cable end here, plug it into that same hole that I just removed the router from. Cables are nice and heavy duty. Go ahead and mount this one box on my kind of my tech cabinet area. Make sure that this is mounted up to the dish. Plug this power supply into power, and then plug this Ethernet cable into my mobile router, which I'll show you one example here. This is the router that would come in our bundle kit. This is a Balance 20X. I would take this cable and I would plug it right into the WAN internet input port, and that would be my internet solution. I get my 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi out of the Peplink. This has an integrated cellular modem, so I could have cellular Wi-Fi, and then it would manage the Starlink for me, and I could combine Starlink and cellular into one solution, or just use it as Starlink only if I didn't have cellular at that particular time. You could just run just Starlink through this although it kind of defeats the purpose since this device can run multiple internet solutions. But maybe if you're running just a trip and you don't want to pay for cellular data, you could see how that operates and then add cellular, or just turn on the cellular when you need it for a work call or something like that. But this would balance out the solution and also limit the amount of 120 volt power sources that I need to plug power into, since the Peplinks will run on DC straight from my house batteries, and then I just have to worry about powering up the one power supply here that will power the dish. So to each his own, it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to explain how this kit can provide additional flexibility right out of the box, and explain what this cable is for folks that don't understand why there's an Ethernet cable that doesn't look like it's going to plug into anything that comes with the Starlink kit, because it won't. To kind of give you a quick sneak peek, here's a screenshot of my dashboard on my Peplink inside of my RV. And as you can see here, I think I have almost 10 internet connections, including the Starlink high performance fixed mount dish. This is, for me, really how I am able to work from the road. I've got multiple connections to the internet, and that's just a reason why I think that you'd want to integrate a Peplink router as your kind of central command center to manage the Starlink connection, so you have a lot more redundancy and flexibility. As always, this video is brought to you by our premium members. You can check out memberships at membership.mobilemusthave.com. There is a whole wealth of information at the Mobile Internet Resource Center, which is included in your membership, that will give you all the information you can possibly think of regarding Starlink, as well as cellular data plans, as well as how this stuff all gets set up. And it also includes access to forums where you can talk with experts, myself included, to talk about kind of how all of this stuff fits together. So that's at membership.mobilemusthave.com. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed the overview of the Starlink fixed mount high performance satellite internet solution. As always, you can hop over to mobilemusthave.com, start up a chat in the bottom right hand corner. There's a chat there that's available for you to speak to an agent. You can also go over to talk.mobilemusthave.com, and you can schedule a one-on-one consultation with an expert to help you pick a solution that's right for you. Or you can always just email us at info@mobilemusthave.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the road.